I ngā mana i reo tina koutou katoa. Nau mai haere mai e te rangatira mā, kia ora koutou katoa. A very warm welcome to Councillor Lawson, who is attending via Zoom today. Very warm welcome also to our team who are with us from the Youth Council as we look at your placements in our committees, representing the youth of Heretaunga Hastings. Wonderful to have you in the chamber today. Good afternoon, everybody, staff and members of the public who may wish to join us today at this council meeting. Lovely to have you with us. Could I ask TK to start with a karakia? Kia ora.
Tūwhera mai, te kuaha, tūwhera mai, te tatau o te whare, tūwhera mai, te ngā kauaroha, te kaunihera arohe o Heretaunga. Kia mai te tipua, mai te tawhito, mai te kāhui o ngā riki, mai tawhiwhiki ngā tūā ke tau te Māori. Tau te Māori tū, te Māori o ho, te Māori take, te Māori wānanga, te Māori āio, i o nui i o ro, i o take, i o wānanga, i o te mataho, i o matawā, i tū ake nei ki te pau, ko te pau kāke, ko te pau kei au, ko te pau kei ngā koronga matu o te wānanga. I hiri pau raramati i a horoto wānanga tēnei, te pau kāke, ko te pau kei au, ko te pau kia mātou. Te uhore, te uho matua, i te wānanga whāno, hara mai te toki haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi TK. And if those councillors who don't know, TK is the manager of Waiaraha. So, and gave a beautiful welcome the other day to our Chinese delegation. And they were most impressed with the beautiful welcome they received from him. There are no apologies or no leave of absence that has been received. Welcome, Deputy Mayor. You've got your beautiful T-shirt on. Any leave of absence? Call for leave of absence. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. Friday, the 9th of May, please.
Thank you. No further leave of absence? I'm happy to move from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Watkins. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Just to manage conflicts of interest, councillors, as we address them in the usual way as we come to them. Thank you. Item 4 is a confirmation of minutes. Minutes of meetings that were held on the 13th of February, the 18th of February and the 25th of February. Yes, a very big month for everybody. Do I have a mover for those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Seconded, Councillor Kerr. Any questions on those minutes? I'll put those minutes. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Moving on to the Mayor's verbal update, and yes, we can certainly say that the month of February-March has been a very, very busy month, and can I acknowledge all the councillors who have supported many of the events and many of the wonderful activities that have gone on across Heretaunga Hastings in the last month, and there have been a lot of them. Firstly, I'd like to just highlight the beautiful blessing ceremony that we had at Eskdale Park for the redevelopment and opening. And for those who attended, it was very special to be able to have the Eskdale Park reopened for the community. I attended the International Wine Media Lunch, and that was meeting with wine writers from around the globe, and sat next to a lady who has 2 restaurants in Manhattan and knows our New Zealand and our Hawke's Bay wine very well. So for us, and another gentleman who I sat next to from Japan, and so this was critically important for them to be able to see our district and go home and write about us and our incredible wine from Hawke's Bay. We had a special SBS Bank event, which New Zealand Paralympic cycling silver medalist Anna Taylor shared her journey from being a world-class rower in USA and conquering some incredible challenges as being a cycling world champion at the Paris Paralympic Games, and what an extraordinary woman. I attended the competition for the North Island roller hockey at our Windsor Park, and how amazing that was to attend that and to meet the roller hockey teams from across the North Island. We also had a beautiful blessing for Ngā Po o Hiritonga in Civic Square as our po go to be restored and who returned at the time of Matariki. Thrive 25, thank you to the councillors who joined me for the showcase and celebration of our rainbow community and the opening of their beautiful new home. And I know that many of our youth councillors attended with us, and what a beautiful evening it was. We saw some pretty amazing dancers, didn't we? Some of our youth councillors, I didn't know they could move so well. We had an all of local government, rural and provincial sector meeting with Councillor Sholem and the Deputy Chief Executive, Bruce Allen, and that was a very, very important meeting in Wellington with mayors and councillors. Our Fresco Fridays over February have been a huge highlight for our community. Those of you who attended would have seen how important that was for our community to come together to celebrate, to enjoy our beautiful city and taste our beautiful food. So it was people saying, could we have one every week and every month? And, you know, they want us to keep going on those beautiful events. We had a great International Cultures Day this year held in Cornwall Park. Many of our councillors joined us and celebrated our multicultural community. The sun shone, we carried our flags and recognised the importance of our 20% of our community made up from various cultures from around the world. We had a HDC Emergency Welfare Support Trailer Show and Tell, which are 2 trailers that are helping us with our resilience for future events. There were 2 Grant Street and Te Wanga Playground community drop-ins were held to look at the upgrades of those playgrounds. I attended the New Zealand Air Force Band concert and everybody loved being in our Toi and Event Centre and the Opera House celebrating this incredible band, and it was a full Opera House that night. Citizenships held on the 4th of March, and there are 4 planned events to be held in 2025, and they will have up to 90 new citizens each. So we are having bigger citizenships and not so frequent because there are so many coming through, and we have to address this, our new citizens and get them through because they are calling out to become new citizens. Horse of the Year this year was exceptional. While numbers were down slightly because economic times, there was still great attendance. Only 1 rider from Australia whom I met, but it was incredible to see people still travelling from all across Aotearoa, New Zealand to attend Horse of the Year. And I acknowledge the team and the board. Under these circumstances, putting on a significant event like that, all numbers across events in New Zealand are down, and they did an extraordinary job. We had the best ever, one of the most moving pōheres that I've been to welcome our TNG RSC people, our workers that have come here with TNG, and it was a very, very moving pōhere to actually acknowledge them and thank them for their work. Some of them had been here since November, but some of them had just arrived. So held at Matahiwi. It was a beautiful, beautiful pōhere. Can I just also acknowledge the International Women's Day I attended with the multicultural women, an afternoon tea party to acknowledge International Women's Day. Was a beautiful afternoon tea. My goodness, they could bake some beautiful food. We had the 30th anniversary of St Matthew's Primary School held in early March. And 30 years the school has been in our city, and just the most beautiful event, a church service and all the children singing, and it was wonderful to see what was happening with the school and how it's changed and developed over 30 years. I just would like to acknowledge Councillor Fowler, who attended the Ramadan Muslim Holiest Month ceremony on a Sunday afternoon on our behalf at dinner, and that's really important to our Muslim community. I attended the opening of the most amazing Rob Sturge sports canopy at Hastings Boys High School. What a beautiful addition that is to our Hastings Boys School. It's it's 3 courts, basketball or volleyball courts with a huge canopy roof. and it's absolutely a huge asset being funded for Hastings Boys, and a recognition of Rob, who was an extraordinary principal of Hastings Boys High School. We've had 3 book launches: Kiss My Glass by Catherine Robertson, Dick Frizzell's launch about Hastings, being born and raised in Hastings, and Promenading by the Napier's iconic Marine Parade by Michael Fowler. We also, a number of us attended the Latty Group site opening, 5,500 square metres of new facility in Irongate. Absolutely incredible asset to our district and our region. And Latties have a big plant also in Levin, but their concrete structures and the work that they've done to help us with our recovery, with our bridge work, we're very, very good friends of Latties Group, and thank them for their investment in our Hastings Irongate industrial area. The Hindu Council of Hawke's Bay had the Holi Festival, and I know that a number of our councillors enjoyed that. It's obviously, it's after the long winter in India. It's symbolic of triumph over evil, and celebrated by many of the team who loved having the paint thrown at them, and good memories I think that you all had. Business Association had a very good presentation last week with our community to understand the new safety regime for KiwiRail in the middle of our town, well attended by our business community to understand what that upgrade will look like and how we'll keep people safe in our city mall area. We also had the Ministry of Ethnic Communities. I attended last week with our Hawke's Bay Multicultural Community, and that was the Government Ministry of Ethnic Communities to understand what funding there will come from the Crown and what there won't be. But ultimately, the most important part is that we must continue our welcoming communities, and we put our pitch very loud and clear to the Ministry how important that role is for us in welcoming communities and having a person in that role. We had last Friday the New Zealand Motor Caravan and Motorhomers 68th National Rally. 500 motorhomers came into Hastings and more than 1,000 people. Our town was abuzz and alive with people from around Aotearoa, New Zealand, who chose our town and set up camp at the racecourse. And to hear them, and as I opened their rally, them talk about the reason why they came to Hastings, because they wanted to help us rebuild our economy post-Cyclone Gabrielle. So it was an honour to welcome them to our city. We had a beautiful Lowe's Pit Open Day, and to be fair to say that in my 15 years of council, I hadn't heard the background and history and learnt about the family of Peter Lowe until I attended that event on Saturday. And I loved hearing from the family and the neighbours who had grown up in that area since the 1940s, and the purpose and the role of that Lowe's Pit. So it was a great learning. It's wonderful to see what our council teams have done in the recent years and the investment, and what that Lowe's Pit looks like today. Quite extraordinary. We've had 2 visits from Chinese delegations this week. Both of them, one was largely horticulture, and the other one is a delegation from Shaoxing, and they are looking at all sorts of opportunities around apples, wine, tourism, looking at Hawke's Bay being included in the Auckland, Rotorua, Taupō and Hawke's Bay, and bringing Chinese visitors to New Zealand. So I was very proud to welcome both those parties. I also attended this week the Te Tumu Toi Arts Foundation, and working with the Hawke's Bay Arts Festival. And it's wonderful to see the synergy of this national arm foundation working with Arts and Heritaunga to look at how they can support the Arts Festival. It was a wonderful fundraising event with all of our arts community, and I was very proud to see the team working so hard to raise some extra funding for our festival. And of course, last but certainly not least, Meat on the Street. how incredible our first inaugural ever Meatball Festival was for Heritonga Hastings. And with 15,000 meatballs consumed, 5,000 people in attendance, we all had a ball. And I loved the music. I loved the Youth Council. I didn't get to talk to you, but thank you for your mahi on the night. And everybody we've spoken to since saying, when's the next one? So we've started a new Heritonga Hastings tradition. We've been doing the Blossom Festival for 30 years. How many years for the Blossom Festival? 75 years for the Blossom Festival, so I'm sure Meatballs is going to be 75 years too. The community loved it and they just feel very connected to the Meatball Festival. So that concludes our busy month of February and early March. I'm happy to move my report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jessup. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Now we move on and we take this opportunity to welcome our Youth Council. Would you like to say anything, Chair Millie or Faison? Would you, if you'd like to come up here? But councillors, in your agenda papers, you'll see that there's a summary of recommendations for the Youth Council to be part of our committees, and those committees and how they've been selected is in your paper. And the representation. Louise, did you want to say anything first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. I take the report as read. Those are the recommendations that have come from the Youth Council. Just wish to add one thing that would be good to note in the minutes is since the Youth Council meeting, there's been a little bit of reflection around some of these appointments. In particular regarding the Rural Community Board and the Rural Hall Subcommittee. Some discussion around be good to have a youth council with, from the rural community with a strong affinity. And this year is probably just not the year we have someone of that vein, and so it suggested that those two positions remain vacant just for this year. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Louise. Kia ora, welcome to you both.
Thank you. Kia ora everyone, my name is Millie. I'm the chair of the Hastings Youth Council for this year, and here is Faison, who's my deputy chair. I guess I'd just love to say thank you so much for your support and for the opportunity for us to be able to be on these subcommittees. It's a real great place for us as youth to be able to share our voice on issues around Heritonga Hastings and things that you're also doing really well as well for youth as well, and we really, really appreciate it. It's something that we do every year now, which is incredible, and yeah, thank you so much. Did you want to say anything, Faison?
Kia ora everyone. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity. This is my second year on Youth Council, so I'm excited to be on the Community Wellbeing Subcommittee again. I really liked my first year on Youth Council, and being a part of that subcommittee was a great experience for me, and it's a good experience for everyone too, to foster their leadership and gain insight and knowledge from our councillors on if they're looking to have a political career in the future, how they can go about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing.
We've got a question here from Councillor Hickey.
Not a question, Your Worship, but just a comment. Nā reira, he turumi kia korua ngā tia mana o te puari nei. And koutou, just to acknowledge all of those that have been appointed to committees. It's really important, and can't wait to see the skills and attributes that you bring to the table. Your voice is strong, and that you add value to what we do. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. These appointments, does that mean every youth councillor will be on a committee and having that committee experience?
Millie, would you like to talk about the appointments and the process? Thank you.
So there was an application process towards those who wanted to be on subcommittees. It wasn't like forced upon any youth councillors. It was their choice to be able to gain the opportunity to be on subcommittees or not. So not every youth councillor is on a subcommittee. That's just for their own personal commitment, and we ensured that on the subcommittees would have youth councillors who would be able to commit to the roles as well and commit to the times of the meetings and the workload as well. So yeah, not every youth councillor is, but we provided the opportunity for every youth councillor to.
Wonderful, thank you. Councillor Sholem.
Kia ora, Millie, thank you for that. And just building on what you've said, I think the other thing to be aware of is this year's Youth Council has a number of first-time youth councillors, and they want a moment to watch, learn, and then they'll put their names forward in future.
Thank you. Councillor Monteputo Hendry.
Kia ora, thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry, Anna. Kia ora, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say, as the Chair of Community Wellbeing, what a positive experience it was for me too, having our youth voice at the table. And last year, and I know I'm repeating this, but it's good to remember that at the local government New Zealand conference, there was a comment made that actually the average age of New Zealand is about 37 years, and the average age of our councillors throughout the country was about 67. So having that voice is critically important. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Apatu. Well said. Well said. Thank you. Councillor Monteputo Hendry. What about younger younger councillors?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I have a question, possibly, I don't know if it's officer directed or youth council. Firstly, thank you. What you bring to the table is awesome, and you keep us young. Just making sure that, and this is probably from a protection point of view, are the members that are on the smoke-free and alcohol councils and transport group of age? I know it doesn't have to be by legislation, but just wondering if we've considered that. And the ones on transport, do they have licences? That was just a question.
Answer that, please.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm not sure of particular ages around licences and things, but
Is Emma here?
Emma
So just in terms of, that would have been a consideration. Sorry.
I was on the Active Transport Committee last year, and myself personally, I do not have a licence because I'm epileptic, so I'm not allowed to drive. However, I find that transportation for myself is actually a huge issue and an accessibility issue, so it was important to have that voice on the Active Transport Subcommittee. So this is myself personally speaking, believe that they have to have a licence because transport is important to them anyway, especially as a youth as well. But that's just my point of view on that.
Good answer.
It's not the full Transport Committee, it's the Active Transport. Lovely, thank you. Excellent. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Apatu. Seconded, Councillor Bato. Heki. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you to you both for coming in, and thank you everybody for coming in. It's wonderful to have you in the chamber. You're very welcome to stay, but I know how dedicated you are as students. You might need to get back to school. The choice is yours. Right, moving on to item 7. This is the Hearings Committee Terms of Reference and proposed changes that could include a reference to plan change hearings, private plan change hearings. So welcome to Anna. And so this is a change, this terms of reference, councillors, if you'd like to take a note of this change and what that would mean, particularly for our commissioners and how this could impact you and the organisation. So Anna, over to you. Or John, we've got Mr. O'Shaughnessy here.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, this is just a change to clearly state the membership and quorum requirements for private plan change requests. So we're anticipating that we will get a number of private plan change requests in the next 6 to 12 months. The last time we received a private plan change request was in 2012, before we undertook the district plan review. So it's been quite some time. So the amendments recommended in this report are just to clearly state those requirements as opposed for private plan change requests, as opposed
to a council-initiated plan change process. And so the membership requirements are set at 5, a maximum of 5 members, including the chair or deputy chair in the chair's absence, with a quorum of 3. To take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Anna. Some questions? Councillor Butto?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just make the comment, it makes sense to me and I'm happy to move.
Councillor Butto. Councillor Shonham?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Shonham. Councillor Nixon?
Thanks, Chair. I just wondered how the local government elections might impact on any hearings, because there might be discontinuity, people there and then not there, all that sort of thing. How do we handle that?
Through you, Your Worship. I think following the election, then the hearings committee or the appointments to the hearings committee will be decided at that time. And so any plan changes that fall over that election period, the hearings we will push out until that hearings committee appointments have been made.
Right.
So I think we can manage it.
So people, nothing will sort of cover that period. That's what you're saying, is it?
At the moment, we don't anticipate private plan changes over that period. They're either hearings are in June or before you break for the election period in October.
That sounds fine. That's what the answer I was looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Corbyn?
Thank you, Worship. I'll just make the point that the hearings committee doesn't need to be made up of councillors. So I don't see the election actually impacting on that.
Thank you, Councillor Corbyn. Exactly right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do I have a mover and a second? Oh, yes, we've got a mover and a second. Councillor Butto, Councillor Shonham, second. Any further questions or comments? I'll put that those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much, Anna. Staff, if you can just note Councillor Eileen Lawson, who's with us on Zoom, if she raises her hand, could you please sing out? Because sometimes I might not be looking up and all around. Thank you. Parking controls, welcome James. Oh, no, James, no. John Payne and Alison. Thank you, Alison. A couple of recommendations there for you to look at. Beresford Street, Russell Street South, Heritonga Street West, North Side, and so some changes there to parking. Did you have anything to add, John or Alison?
So Alison Frey, just to fill in for James in his absence. So take the report as being read. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. Just in terms of leased car parking in Russell Street, what is the number of waiting list people who are wanting leased parking at the moment, please?
So currently there is 485 on the waiting list.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
485. They are on multiple lists, so one name can be on multiple, but currently for Russell Street there is 11.
Just about feel a parking building coming on, Mr. Allen. Just about feel it. Just to come in closer. Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Your Worship, I'm happy to move a parking building. I'm happy to move the recommendation as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. I have a seconder. Thanks, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Any further questions to the team about those changes? Councillor Monteput Hendry.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just considering a reminder that we had of the importance of the Heritonga Women's Centre and the findings of 50% use of the car parks, assumably that they're customers from the CBD and of the Heritonga Women's Centre, and there are busy people requiring car parks to dash into town. I calculate that we only need 12 leased and 10 public. In your recommendations, you said that there would be 2 permits given to, in the other officers' recommendations, there will be 2 permits given to the Heritonga Women's volunteers. were they intended to be going to the leased car parks or into the public car parks?
So they actually currently have those permits. That scheme's been running for a while. But we were considering giving them an additional 2 spaces. There are currently already 4 spaces that we've assigned to them. But one of those options would be to give them another 2. They can use those permits in the public spaces in the eastern car park.
Thank you. Another question, if I may.
So yes, so just refer everybody to G and H because there is an or. So if we could just take you to recommendations G and H, there is an or. Councillor Lawson. Just put your volume up a little bit. We're just struggling to hear. You try again? Can you hear me now? Lovely, thank you.
Yes, James did consult them. They weren't overly happy with what we were planning to do, but we saw as a good option was to give them extra spaces. So taking the 4 spaces to 6.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lawson. I'll come back to you, Councillor Monteputo Hendry, your second question.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor Hazelhurst. I just wondered if we could have clarification on which letters the mover and the seconder were moving and seconding. And once we have that clarification, I would like to move an amendment to F.
Okay, thank you. So if I go back to the mover now, please.
Your Worship, I'm happy to support the Women's Centre having those additional spaces.
Thank you. Does the seconder support the motion?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And then I'll come back to you now, Councillor Monteputo Hendry.
Thank you. Can I speak on what I wanted to amend? Or?
Yes,
Thank
certainly.
you. So I just had that F would continue as it was, but that 5 of the existing 15 metered parking spaces, et cetera, as in the recommendations, directly after the last existing leased car park with new measurements inserted would be adopted in F, remove G and then adopt H, which meant that we had 12 leased car parks and 10 for the public, including 2 for Hiratonga Women's Centre, so that everyone benefited. And then that took up the 12, giving 1 extra from the 11 in that allotment. Thank you.
So I think we might need to put something up to that effect. Thank you, Mr. Cameron. If we could just...
Yes. 9 metre places to 7 metre places.
Our understanding, the substantive motion on the table is A to F and H.
Correct.
So A to F and H. Yep. So that incorporates what your...
With F amended, I just passed that to...
Okay.
What I can do, Madam Chair, is draft an amendment which would need to be moved and seconded. And Council would consider the amendment and go back to the substantive motion.
Yeah. Yes, well, we need to understand exactly what the F amendment looks like. So, I'll just take some more questions while I ask you to look at that, and then.
Point of order, Your Worship. I think due process is there is a recommendation that's been moved and seconded. I sense the offer from the floor is that if that fails, then there's another
Through to the
option.
amendment. Yes.
So best practice would be to vote on the existing recommendations.
Thank you.
And if fails, we then go to Councillor Hanna's proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr.
Well said.
I'll now move to councillor Nixon. We're talking about the motion that is on the table with no change.
I have a bit of a concern that I think when we told there's 11 applications for parks, then we're planning to remove 22 if the Women's Centre gets two parks.
Let's just ask the question, please. You ask the
Effectively,
question.
this is the question. Are we able to stagger the introduction to match it better with the number of applications we've got? Otherwise, we're going to deprive some people of parking, and the parks will just stay empty because they're not leased and they're not available.
Sorry, we felt that there was parking available on Eastbourne Street. It's definitely something that we could consider. Yeah,
The
11
question is,
spaces.
there's nothing to stop us actually.
So councillor Nixon, that's not part of the recommendation that is on the table at the moment.
Because I'll,
So I'm only taking comments or questions on the recommendation on the table. We'll come back to amendments after we've dealt with this.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine's not specifically on the recommendation either, but I do have a comment and a question. It's been raised with me several times about disability parking at the Women's Rest, particularly short-term for disabled people who want to use the public conveniences there. And I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity at some time to look at that, an extra 10-minute disability park.
Can we take that as an action? Thank you, to look into that. Thank you. Moving on. Councillor Nixon, you've spoken. Councillor Butto. Speaking to the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got a question. Essentially, there's been concern raised about the number of public car parks versus leased car parks, with my colleague on my left essentially saying that there might be a lack of public car parking available to everyone that's going shopping. Would you have any comments on the availability of public car parking in that area, whether or not 12 car parks should be protected for the public there, and would there be a lack of it if it was all leased?
Good afternoon. We constantly monitor the occupancy of what we can through CCTV. We get a report every week, and at the moment, all around the Hastings CBD, we're sitting at around about 42%, which is really, really quite low. 3 years ago, it was probably more like 52%. So 42% is really, really comfortable. The experts suggest that you start having congestion problems and illegal parking at around 85%. So we're miles off that. So it is very, very light out there.
And just to clarify, that means, in your expert opinion, you're saying that putting those car parks into lease won't have a bad impact on the public car parking in that area?
No, we don't believe so, yes.
Cool.
Thank you. So I have no further questions or comments. So I'm going to put the motion. Have a mover and a seconder. Did the mover and seconder want to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
The recommendations A through to F haven't caused any debate and feel very supportive from our council team. The questions seem to have been raised about the balance of car parking in Russell Street, and we have three competing factors. The women's rest area there, the public car park and the leased car park, and I simply think that H has landed in the most appropriate balance. And the nice thing is that should this be wrong, monitoring, data gathering means you're able to bring it back to us and tweak it further if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Seconder, Councillor Dixon. Thank you, Councillor Dixon. So I have the motion on the table. It is A to F and H. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? 4 against? 4 against, is that? Councillor, against? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 against. Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Thank you to your team, Alison and John. Moving on now to item number 9, which is John again, John Payne, and this is the dog control fees. Can I just acknowledge the service our dog control provides our community at sometimes very, very difficult circumstances. But today, councillors, we are acknowledging and looking at the fees and charges for the coming year. So I want us to focus on the fees and charges for the dog control. So, John, did you want to add anything to your paper, please?
Yes, if I could just make an amendment to table 1 at 3.5. In the first one, it's got 22-23. In the next one, it should be 23-24, and then 24-25. I've skipped a whole year, so.
Can I just make sure that everyone's clear what we're talking about there? Councillor Nixon, you're not clear? Could you just repeat that, please, Mr. Payne?
Yes, so table 1, when we're looking at the number of registered dogs, was 22, the year 22-23. Yes. The following year was the year 23-24.
So 3.5, Councillor Nixon? Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we're all clear with that. Any questions? Councillor Kerr?
Not so much a question, but just an acknowledgement. A couple of years ago, we asked that these fees get brought to us, back to us each year for minor changes rather than coming back, say, every 5 years with significant changes. So just would like to acknowledge that's why we have some minor increases across most areas. Thank you. Happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Do I have a seconder, Councillor? Thank you, Councillor Butto. Any further questions or comments from councillors? No, I'll put the recommendation. Oh, Councillor Montepito Hendry, did you see you?
Sorry, yes, I wasn't wanting to debate anything, just wanted to know, please, through you, Madam Chair, when dogs are adopted out, the ones that have been impounded, is there any way that it can be noted when they are handed on a microchip and given to the new owner that they have been impounded, and then if they are impounded again, that it marks against them? Because I note that we can only note multiple offenders if they are registered, and the unregistered dogs we cannot and do not follow that afterwards.
The only problem with that is that the new person who's getting the dog out wasn't responsible for it going in the first place. So it's not really a mark against them.
Okay.
But we do keep a record of those that go in the first time, come out, then go in the second time, but still belong to the same owner, third time, fourth time, up to 7 times.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you. In 3.1, costs relating to dog registrations, there's the general rate attribution of 27%. Is that on par with other councils around the country?
It's probably about midsection. They range from no rate funding whatsoever up to about 52%, but mostly they're probably around the 25 mark. So we're pretty close.
Council was of a mind to have comparisons for next year's annual plan. That would be something you could take as an action. Yes?
Yes, please.
That?
I think it's,
Yes.
yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you, that is carried. Moving on now to item 10, and this is welcome to Ms Dinwoody, and this is the, and Tom Page, Frimley Pool Complex, decommissioning of pools, infrastructure and grandstand. So as you know, councillors, this has been a big process for us to work through with our community and to understand what's next steps. And today you've received a paper on the next steps and the recommendations from the officers for your consideration on what next steps of the Frimley Pool should be. Thank you, Ms Dinwoody. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kia ora, councillors. As the Mayor has said, this was in response to Council resolution in September 2024. This report recommends that the Frimley Pools grandstand and associated pool infrastructure be permanently decommissioned, deconstructed and the area returned to grass. And we have put up there for you a couple of diagrams or a diagram in the picture so that it's really clear which areas we're talking about. The report also recommends that the buildings, which have the red part around them in the picture, remain. That's the changing rooms, it's the plant room, which would have the plant removed, and office space. And the fencing also remain whilst we investigate potential use for the buildings and the area once it has been returned to grass. That's for the use of other sporting codes for other recreational activities. This is aligned with the strategic reviews as outlined in the paper. And you'll also note that Sport Hawke's Bay agree that the national and local data does not support further further investment into Frimley Pool and is supportive of the area's return to grass. So we're seeking approval for operational funds for this financial year and next financial year to be used for the decommissioning of the areas as outlined, and furthermore for us, in particular the Parks team, to continue to work with sporting codes to see what use they might have for the area, and that to be reported back to council.
Thank you very much. I know it's not been an easy process. Any change is always challenging, but we're heartened to see that there are sporting codes that have expressed interest. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just looking at recommendation D, that the pool plant, the building, the changing rooms, toilets remain. How are they going to be protected from graffiti and undesirable usage?
Through you, Your Worship. Currently, I mean, it's no different from the current operations. It's only obviously active during the summer months, and the area is inactive during the winter. So it would just remain inactive for a period of time. We do still have CCTV in the area, so we are able to keep an eye on security. The fencing will remain, so people won't be able to come in. So it's just those pathway facing parts of the building.
Thank you.
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Worship. I'm referring to 6.5, and although this is referred to in the report, I think it's really important that this question is asked publicly for those that may be simply watching on screen. There's a huge worry in the community, and has been expressed to me, that if we permanently close the pool, then this area can be turned into housing. And there's also been a rumour saying that Kainga Ora may be putting housing there. So mostly for the record, because I know councillors will understand why it can't happen, could somebody please just address that concern and explain to the community that may be watching why that is simply not a possibility? Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. The land is vested as a recreation reserve, which does mean that it must have a primary purpose for recreation, with has to be retained as green space for outdoor recreational activities. So it cannot be sold for housing or cannot be sold at all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. The question is, what are the risks if we decide not to demolish it right now, but rather to leave it in its current state and demolish it at a more opportune moment, that is, when we are under less financial pressure?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Your Worship. The ongoing annual cost, as in the paper, is around $17,000 a year. That's just to keep, it updated with security, etc. The thing about the demolition costs is that market right now is quite competitive. So we are seeing very good pricing in regards to deconstruction and demolition. So there is never a better time to do it than right now. They're the main reasons.
I just had a question there. So what effect of the 17,000 that we're paying, would that change if we demolish it or we don't demolish it? the particular structures you're talking about. I mean, I can't see there's any difference.
No, that you're right, councillor. There wouldn't be many differences. It would just be ongoing costs if we decided to leave it as is. I guess the difference would be that we would be hoping to use it. So that if we did the deconstruction now, it means that there's over 8,000 square metres of area that another sporting code could use in the future, rather than it just be sitting there not being used at all.
Can I just another one then? So, are there any additional costs to
Please,
Sorry.
through the chair, please.
Yes, I'm looking at you. Are there any additional costs to transform it to that use after the demolition of the structures we're talking about?
Thank you, councillor. Through you, your worship. What the proposition is that the Parks team would take on this piece of work should this go ahead. The idea is that they would put out an expressions of interest to offer sporting codes the opportunity, but that would be that those sporting codes take on the development of this area for their particular sporting code. Those choices, once the expression of interest runs its course, those would then be brought back to council for you to look at and for us then to go forward from there. I understand what would happen then is that it would trigger a minor amendment of the reserve management plan, which would then require an ad in the paper saying what council's intention is, and then at that point in time the public could ask questions or present submissions for your final decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Theo Skipworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have been approached by many in the community about this, and can we give assurance to the community that we had invested money into the maintenance of the pools to ensure that we never got to this stage? Have we genuinely maintained as asset managers the complex to lead it to where it is today?
Through you, Your Worship, sorry, I might have to call on Mrs. Wilson here, but an asset management plan was followed, and we do have asset management plans for all our facilities, but I can't comment on sort of previous decades.
Bruce, Mr. Allen, did you want to make a comment?
Through you, Chair, I think a lot of the assets here are effectively getting to end of life, so you could have maintained them perfectly, but at some point in time they will get to end of life, and I think that's where a lot of the plant and the pool itself is getting to. That at some point in time you do need to get to a point where you make a big decision, which is actually to replace what you've got or remove it.
And this question came to council in the long-term plan 10 years ago, how to manage the pool in the future.
Can I follow up?
Yes, thank you.
Because I don't feel like the question has been answered. Was there money prioritised to do maintenance, and was it spent on it? Because you spoke about a 10-year plan. Was it spent on the maintenance, or did we not spend that money on the maintenance?
Discussing the demolition or not of the complex, I'm not sure that we realistically consider this decision and make it apparent.
Just through you, Your Worship, just to build on Mr. Allen's comment, I think to answer Councillor Theo Skipworth's question, the council made a deliberate decision 10 years ago. It hasn't been that the council hasn't maintained the asset. It's the council made a decision. We've maintained it to what is an end-of-life asset and hasn't made an investment decision to basically carry that asset into the future. Basically run the asset to the end of life. And that was a decision that in effect was made many long-term plans ago. So it hasn't been a lack of maintenance in the asset, it's just an asset that's at end of life. And the council's
considered it in its deliberations in the long-term plan whether or not it continues to spend the amount that is required to bring it back to spec, that is new pipes and new infrastructure. So that is the decision that you made when we considered the Frimley pools through our long-term plan. Councillor Sholem?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question around E and the investigation into use of the site and remaining assets for other sport codes. In part, through you, Your Worship, thank you, Mr. Woody, for explaining that there's an amendment to the RMP process that in part answers my question. But I'm just interested to understand if during that direct neighbours will be consulted in particular, because I suspect they have a high interest. I suspect that because I've heard from a few of them. They're very keen to understand what's going to happen with that land. And I also am aware that Frimley School would love to be involved in expressions of interest as well. So if I can just note that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Can I just clarify, did we answer the point of order, whether or not it was relevant or not? Okay, so we can talk about the questions on before. So my question is that I see that we're expecting to invest $305,000 into the decommissioning and of the facility, yet if we leave it, it'll cost us $17. Is that correct? 17,000.
Through you, Your Worship, yes, that is correct. That 305,000 is a maximum. We are expecting it to be less than that.
And the question today is, rightly so, whether or not we're going to decommission the facility or just keep it closed. Is that correct, Your Worship?
That was the recommendations that council made last time. It's on page E6.
Correct. And for that reason, and being the fact that we need to save money, look at ways of saving money, I'm not prepared to invest $305,000 on closing a facility on the mere fact that the price may go up in regards to decommissioning or not. We don't know. It's a competitive market, but on the basis of costing us $17,000 to maintain the facility, or $305,000 to pull it down and turn it back to grasslands and or a reserve with some accessible facilities, I'm not in favour of the recommendations to close down the facility at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. So you're saying that you wish not to close the facility. Is that?
No, he's not saying that.
You not wish to decommission. Is that what you're saying? You do not wish to decommission.
That is correct.
Okay,
I do
thank you.
not wish to decommission, so
Thank
I
you.
move that we don't accept this recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Well, yes. All right. Well, we need to frame up some different recommendations. If you're moving a recommendation that is different from these.
So motion.
I share a motion. I would be in favour of moving the recommendations as they are. So if this motion fails,
yeah.
Thank you.
Mine will be accepted.
Yes. So I call for a second from the initial motion called by Councillor Hickey. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Teo Skipworth. Right, so I'll ask the officers to give us 5 minutes to draw up some recommendations contrary to the
Point. There's still questions to
Yes,
be asked.
I'll take those questions, but we've got a motion to say not to decommission. So I'll take other questions now.
And I just lost my spot by saying that, so can I just...
Right, yes, Councillor Harvey, take yours now, thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm just interested in what is the decommissioning, and also there's significant trees in and around that area. Do they remain, or are we saying that that area is completely cleared? What is the delineation or the markings of that, please?
Did we get a mover and a second or not?
Yes, we have, thank you. Councillor Hickey, Councillor Teo Skipworth. Oh, I'm taking comments and questions. Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Finish questions.
Councillor Councillor Kirby, have you
I
can
haven't had
answer?
a response, no.
No, thank you. Right.
Thank you,
Councillors,
Councillor.
can I ask you not to jump up like that and take your turn while we've got a question on the table? Thank you. Thank you, Mr Dinwoody.
Through you, Your Worship, there aren't any significant trees within the boundary of the fence line of the Frimley Pool complex that would need to be taken out to do this work.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't aware that council had decided to not maintain Frimley pools 10 years ago. And it does raise the question for me about our other pools. What is the asset management plan for them? I'm thinking Havelock, Flaxmere, we've discussed Splash a lot. But it's not just the pools, there may be other council facilities that should be included in that question. As a councillor, it would be great to know what has been decided in the past about the facilities and what the current asset management plan is. Please take that as a question. Could we have a report on that at some time? Yeah.
Through your worship, yes, there are asset management plans in place for all of our facilities that our building team look after, and I think, yes, certainly maybe bringing it back to performance and monitoring or a strategy and recovery committee, whichever is appropriate, where we can summarise that information and provide you that assurance that there is sufficient asset management plans in place for our facilities.
Councillor Barrow. No?
Oh, I think I overlooked you. Thank you, Ms Andra. It's a comment that may amend the last recommendation. Is that okay to take that now? Okay, a question is 6.8, very much in favour of officers investigating the potential use in the future of the remaining assets. And what you've worded here is by other sporting codes. Did you also think to include other organisations, which broadens it, not just sporting codes?
Thanks, Bex.
Thank you, councillor, and through you, your worship. Yes, that was pointed out to me today actually by another officer, that yes, that can be wider than sporting codes, but does still need to fit with the purpose of a recreation reserve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good call. Good comment. Thank you. Councillor Barrow.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question on the fencing and could you just walk us through what's required there and the budget for that?
Thank you, councillor. Through you, your worship. The fencing cost is currently the grandstand actually acts as quite a big proportion of a fencing along one side. So the cost for the fencing there is when the grandstand comes down to ensure it's still a secure site. So it's just for that particular part.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon?
Yeah, I actually thought we were on the point where we could comment. Are we at that point or not?
No.
Still questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Monteperto Hendry?
Kia ora, thank you, your worship, and through you. Have we looked at, please, getting more bang for our buck, that if we did hold the demolition until we found our reimagining, whatever that may be it aquatics and or other, would that save money in the long term and we could look into a partnership and other? So if we're going to pay this for demolition now, but we're going to have whatever proposed that may come beautifully to us, if we do it together, would that not be beneficial? So holding could save us money.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. Through you, your worship. The thing that we know that will not be needed by another sporting code is the pools themselves. So if you remember the picture, there are sort of 3 pool areas. One of them is a 50-metre pool. It's of significant size. So, you know, the vast majority of the deconstruction is of actually the pools and the pool infrastructure. So that's all that plant. There's a room called a plant room with all the filters, etc., which are huge pieces of equipment. None of that could be repurposed for another sporting code. From a practical perspective, we have said that the grandstand will be left while these discussions occur, just in case the grandstand might be able to be used by the sporting code, but that would be, you know, a decision as we progressed.
Thank you, and if I may, another
Yes,
follow up.
thank you.
Thank you. So I understand that, and that makes perfect sense. Just wondering if we're looking at what the surface, like the finished surface, would be, regrassing, paying for regrassing, where if we went to something else, they might not need that level. So if we held before we found out what it was, what our finished product had to be for that next reimagining, is that beneficial or cost saving, potentially?
Through your worship, potentially. I mean, we can't leave big holes in the ground. So obviously, like most sporting codes, won't need holes in the ground, so we need to fill them. And we would, I mean, the level of grass we're looking to put in isn't sort of pitch quality grass, so it's just really basic park grass to really keep the area looking okay and prevent dust from going in the neighbours, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
Kia ora, Your Worship. My question is actually around the point in yellow on the screen, and through you to Mr. Cameron. Could we simply have a full stop after Frimley Pool Complex? The reason being, it could be read that we do not approve the work to commence, and we ask that the areas return to grass. So if there was a full stop after complex, it makes that recommendation very succinct. Thank you.
I just asked the mover if the mover is comfortable with that direction. Full stop?
Full stop and
take out and the areas return to grass.
Or else it could read that we don't approve the work to commence and we ask the area return to grass, which is not the intent of the mover. The intent is to stop the decommissioning of the pool.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. I just asked the mover is comfortable with that. Thank you. The seconder? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm taking other questions, Councillor Watkins and Councillor Butter, before we start talking about the recommendation. Thank you. Last two questions, and then we'll move into a debate on the recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in terms of the tender price you've received to demolish the complex, in terms of the big pool, have they stated in price to remove the complete pool or lower the sides and fill in the hole? I want to understand what that tender actually says.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Your Worship, I understand. So it's 3 quotes that we've received, and it is to completely remove all the pool materials. So because they're tiled pools, many of them, so completely remove it and refill in grass.
Okay, thank you.
I've got another question, Councillor Butto.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question on the health and safety risks and or responsibilities this organisation has in leaving 2 large holes in the ground. Are we comfortable managing that if we don't decommission the pools and or deconstruct, or is there anything that we need to be worried about there?
Through Your Worship, thank you, Councillor. Mr. Page may want to add, but you know, our pools are left like this all over the winter. They are the water is removed from them. They are fenced. We do have CCTV. They do fill up with rainwater. There is some risk of falling if someone makes their way into the facility, and we do have some issues with fencing being cut at times, which we manage as well as we can.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
I want to talk to the motion.
Move into the motion.
Yeah.
Councillor Kerr, have you got a question?
I'm the same as Councillor Nixon.
Thank you. Okay, I'll come back to you both. So just for everyone's understanding, we have asked the questions. We had resolved to direct the Chief Executive to cease investing in maintenance in the pool when we last discussed the Frimley pool. We have kept the pool closed from 2024 to 2025 summer season, and today the staff are reporting back to you with a business case for disestablishment of the Frimley pool. Those are the recommendations previously that you agreed to. So now we have a motion on the table. The motion is up there in front of you, and I will ask first speaker to be the mover of this motion. Councillor Hickey.
Kia ora, Your Worship, and kia ora, Your Worship, and just to my fellow councillors, $305,000 investment into decommissioning of a pool without a clear, succinct plan on what may happen in the future is a huge cost for our ratepayers to consider. However, keeping it as it is at the moment, as suggested, $17,000 cost to keep status quo seems to be a more viable option at this state and time as we look at ways of cutting costs. So for that reason, I move the motion that the council does not approve work to commence on the decommissioning of Frimley Pool, infrastructure and the grandstand at the Frimley Pool complex.
Councillor Hickey. I'll now move to the seconder, Councillor Teo Skipworth, and then I'll open it up for others on my list.
No, I don't have much to say, just total quarter comments.
Thank you, councillor Teo Skipworth. Now moving to councillor Nixon. We're talking to the motion on the
Yes,
screen.
thank you. I definitely support the motion. I think, we have so many discussions about trying to cut costs. This is an absolute ideal opportunity to take a step that will, perhaps only for a short time, few years perhaps, save us quite a substantial amount of money. And for that reason, I'm totally in support of the motion that the grandstand will act as a fence, which I think is good. If suddenly somebody comes along with a great proposal, we can always readdress the issue again.
Thank you, councillor Nixon. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. I'm against the motion mainly because the C says council approves the chief executive to reallocate budget currently assigned to the operations at Frimley Pool. Also believe this will just kick the can down the road for some other council to deal with. Things do not move fast around these parts. So it could be 10, could be 15 years, and it just remains derelict. So I'm against.
Thank you, councillor Fowler. Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Worship. I just have a query about the word decommissioning, because in my view, decommission means you make something unavailable to be used, but the physical attributes could still stay there. And I wonder if that word should be demolished. Just ask the mover to comment.
Do you have any
on
comments on the difference of those two words? Thank you.
I think we talk about decommissioning and constructing, which, is, I guess, a better word than what we do in demolishing, because we're actually reusing a lot of the parts, etc. But yes, happy for that to be
Deconstruction.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you, Worship. I first went to the Frimley Pool Complex back in 1974, and I can't think of thousands of children that I've seen and taught to swim in there, and the number of families that have actually visited that complex over the years. It'd be a sad day for me if this decision was to decommission this pool and destroy it, and I'll be voting against the other recommendations because I'm supporting these ones.
Thank you, councillor Dixon. Thank you, councillor Sholem.
Thank you, Worship. Fond memories also for me, especially of swimming with my kids in these pools, and actually growing up with a family friend who let me sell lollies through the dairy that used to connect to Frimley Pools. That was my job when I was a little kid. I do not support the motion that's on the table at the moment for much the same reasons that Councillor Fowler has highlighted. I believe it's kicking the can down the road. I also believe it's continuing to have a section of a recreational reserve that's fenced off and unused. The longer we leave it there, it cannot be utilised for anything other than a pool that's not being used. I also highlight again in the report, 7.2 clearly outlines the disadvantages of the motion that's on the table at the moment. One of those being it severely limits use of other sporting codes of the space. It's likely to have a higher decommissioning cost in the future, and there's the ongoing costs which become sunk costs of maintaining what's not being used. So therefore, I do not support the motion that's on the table.
Thank you, councillor Sholem. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Worship. I certainly don't want to debate whether we close or don't close. That decision's been made. So today's about when do we decommission. The one thing I do know that as chair of the Regional Sports Park, Mitre 10 Park, we're undergoing a strategic review, and we've approached and been approached by so many sporting codes that want more space or relocation or access. Their sports have grown, so I know that there's an overwhelming demand in the background for space. So for that reason, I cannot support the motion on the table, which is essentially to delay. I think we need to bite the bullet and turn this into a space that other codes and other people can use as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr. Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Worship. We had a report, I don't know who did it, was it Sport Hawke's Bay, on aquatic facilities. And I think it said that there's a shortage of recreational facilities. We haven't had a discussion as to whether there's potential to convert the pool or part of it, not all of it, part of it, to another use. And until we've had that, I'm not.
4.5, councillor Corbyn. 4.15, I'll just refer you to that to answer those questions.
Yes, I read that it's outside, it's cold, et cetera, but I took that as maintaining the complex as it is now with the big pool and the smaller pools, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure it's answered my question, so I'm in favour of this motion until we've actually explored that further.
We're focusing on this motion on the table unless you wish to change anything, councillor Corbyn.
No, I said I'm favouring this motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers on the motion? No, everybody's had their turn. I haven't spoken yet, so I'd just like to say I do not support the motion on the table. And my reasons are that we asked our officers to go and find some cost savings, so we are not propping up areas that have not been well used by our community. We've sadly, I grew up in Hastings and also went to the aquatic centre all my summers. But now our children don't go to cold pools. In fact, I've had a reason this week to visit from the Community Fitness Trust to say that most of the Frimley Pools users are going down to their pools. And are we able to support and help them? There is a huge amount of community going to the Community Fitness Trust pool, and our pool wasn't being used, as we saw. So I cannot support the recommendation on the table. I am really excited about looking at options for future sporting codes and recreation. I know that we have people asking us all the time for new sites for recreational spaces. So I do not support the recommendation that is on the table. Any right of reply required? No?
No.
I'll put the motion that is before you. No further comments. All those who support the recommendation on the screen, please raise your hand. The motion is carried. Councillor Lawson, did we get her vote, please, Lynn? Okay, thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. So moving on now to item 11. Requests for information received under the Local Government Information Act. Any questions to Louise? Yeah, thank you. Any questions on Lagoimas? Quite a number of them there this month.
Happy to move, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Butto. Seconded, Councillor Sholem. No further questions. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Proposed amendment to schedule of meetings. There are a number of changes there on page 48. Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Seconded, Councillor Butto. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Just one thing to add. The district planning and bylaws meeting, they've kindly agreed to start their meeting at 9 a.m. for their next meeting. So that's just shifting from an afternoon meeting to a morning meeting for next month.
Mover and a seconder. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Representation to Local Government New Zealand Conference and accepting of remits and the AGM, item number 13. Councillor Hannah Monteputo Hendry and Councillor Heather Teo Skipworth. I move from the chair, seconded Councillor Nixon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 14. Moving on to the ordering of how candidates' names are put in the election documents. Item 14. Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Seconded, Councillor Watkins. Any questions on this paper? Thank you. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Item number 15 is the appointments to the rural community, from the Rural Community Board to council committees. Could I ask our rural councillors if they wish to speak to this paper? Councillor Butto.
Thank you, Your Worship. Changes made to reflect a change in the chairmanship of that committee, and I'm very happy to move, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Butto. Seconded, please, Councillor Kerr. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. And that concludes the formal part of our agenda, the open part today. And now we have a recommendation to move into a public excluded part of this agenda. Could I call on Mr. Craig Cameron to advise us why the public should be excluded from these items?
Through you, Madam Chair, there's 4 agenda items recommended to be heard in public exclusion. Agenda items 20 to 22 involve council being involved in commercially sensitive negotiation matters. With respect to those items, you're traversing commercially sensitive information, both of council and external parties, recommended appropriate at this time to be heard in public exclusion. Agenda item 19 contains personal information on individuals, not the information of council, and again recommended appropriate at this time for that matter to be heard in public exclusion. Permission is also sought. We have representation here from the property group in respect of item 20, allowed that they remain in the chamber for that item.
Thank you. Any questions? Can I have a mover, please, to exclude the public? Councillor Watkins, second Councillor Harvey. No further questions. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much to our community for joining us today, and all of our staff who have brought those papers to us. We've had good debate, good democracy, and now we move into the public excluded part to look at some commercial transactions. Thank you.